That iconic line we all know and love, Exodia! Obliterate! Unfortunately, Exodia has not really been a viable theme pretty much ever, and compared to other old cards, it's gotten very little in terms of new supports. That is until now, finally, the Millennium theme gives Exodia a new chance at viability. So today, I will be building my own take on the Millennium Exodia deck, and then taking it to locals to see if I can be as good as Yugi with Gramps' deck. If you guys want to see the deck list, as well as the thought process that goes behind a lot of my choices when building the deck, check out the Patreon. I'll be posting the deck list there shortly, as well as giving you guys a breakdown on how I approach building this deck. It's a great way to support my content creation journey, as well as get access to exclusive content that wouldn't perform as well if I put it onto YouTube directly. So if you're looking to learn more, make sure you go check it out. But before I head to locals, let's talk about some of the key cards in the Exodia strategy. In place of Exodia's win condition effects, we have a new boss monster, the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, a fusion monster that requires 5 Forbidden 1 monsters. It cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects, and once per turn of this card battles, during damage calculation, you can make this card gain attack equal to your life points. Once per turn, when a spell, trap card, or effect is activated, you can negate that activation. Also, once per turn during the end phase, you can set one Exod or obliterate spell or trap from your deck. And once per turn during each of standby phases, lose 1,000 life points. This is going to be our main boss monster in the deck. It has a powerful effect to search cards, gain negate, as well as get relatively high attack points, and you'll see why the rest of the synergies work so well. But 5 Forbidden 1 monsters is a steep price, so how do we summon this card efficiently? Well, thankfully there's an answer for us in the theme, that is Millennium Ankh. A fusion spell, I guess, which shows 5 Forbidden 1 monsters from your hand, deck, and or field, and then special summon one unstoppable Exodia Incarnate from your extra deck. Then after shuffling the face of monsters you control into the deck, except for Exodia monsters who are level 10 or higher, and Millennium monsters. Also, you can not special summon for the rest of this turn, and then after activation, shuffle this card back into the deck. So with just this one card, we will immediately have access to our unstoppable fusion monster. In order to access this, we're playing the suite of Millennium monsters, which I've talked about on this channel. There are 5 of them, and I am playing all 5 for the first time, and normally we play the 3 I have talked about plenty, which is Sangajin, Golem, and Shield, which each at the cost of 2,000 life points or revealing an Ankh in your hand, can then summon themselves plus get a bonus effect. The other 2 are Maiden and Fiend Reflection, both of which can get summoned out when your opponent uses a card effect, and then will either gain life points or stop targeting on my level 5 or higher spellcasters for the rest of the turn. All of these Millennium cards can be placed from my hand into the small trap card zone via their own effects, or from the deck from Reju Temple. And the last missing piece we have to talk about are the 2 Exodia spells and traps that we're going to be searching off of our fusion in the end phase. The most important of which is our Exod, Fires of Rage, a trap card that says if you control level 10 or higher Exodia monster, which we will, you can then destroy all cards your opponent controls, which is pretty good. Then if it's in your grave, except the turn it's sent there, you can banish it from the grave, add a Forbidden 1 monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Not really important, but we'll use it. Then lastly, we've got Obliterate Blaze, which is if we control, again, our level 10 or higher Exodia, we can pay half our life to destroy as many spell and trap cards on the field as possible, and then equip 5 Forbidden 1 monsters from your hand or deck to this card that each give the monster 2,000 attacks. And then it also gives the monster piercing damage. So what we're left with is a fully functioning theme revolving around the powerful Exodia monster that can nuke the opponent's field and deal lethal damage incredibly quickly and incredibly simply. So with that said, let's get to locals. So for today's local, we're off to Game Nation, one of my favorite locals and a team I was once a part of many years ago. I haven't played here in quite a while, and I'm very excited to be back. Hopefully going to be coming a lot more often after this. I plan on being there most Wednesday nights to record with some off-the-wall strategies like this Millennium Exodia deck you're about to see now. It's a great environment, and if you guys haven't visited out and living in the Toronto area, I recommend you do. But with that being said, let's get into some actual gameplay. Alright, so we get sat down for round number 1. We have enough players that it will be a 4-round tournament where prizes are awarded based on your end of Swiss record. So no top cut tonight, not enough time for a full Swiss and single elimination brackets. For this first dice roll, I do end up losing, but you can't be too mad because if you are relying on die rolls winning to succeed in your matches, then you have a pretty bad strategy. So we'll kind of just see how it goes. Just a reminder for those watching, if you notice any misplays on my end or on my opponent's end, make sure you are addressing the misplays or any mistakes with a positive tone, being inquisitive and not trying to make anyone feel bad. You must work to have a positive and strong community, and in this channel, we want to foster learning and growth. So pointing out mistakes is allowed, and I want you guys to try and get better. But there is a way to do it, so make sure you are being polite while doing so. Okay, so our opponent is starting off here with Nightmare Throne, and I'm already kind of wincing a bit, because this is kind of rough. You know, the Snake Eye field is pretty damn strong, and trying to break through that is not super easy. However, playing through the Yubel field is even harder, and I'm playing a Breaker deck, spoiler alert, and it really doesn't match up well into a deck that has as strong a field as Yubel. So with no hand traps, I'm going to have to just sit here and let my opponent go through. Now, because I'm not playing any hand traps, that will mean very little interaction on my behalf. So I will speed up through the combo sections of any combo heavy decks that would take a while to play. So we're going to zip through this as our opponent gets to their end field. While going through the combo, it's important to stay attentive, and I've talked about it before, about being respectful to your opponent, but also seeing what information you can gain. Whether it be their certain play styles, their hand traps, non-engine lineup, or just their extra deck. In a format like this, where both Snake Eye and Yubel have extremely tight extra decks, it's not something that's standardized and you'll know what to expect. So here I'm looking out for a few things, such as Desiree, Caesar, Varudras, and several other cards that may or may not come up. Just any information is information that could be valuable for future games, and no reason for me to neglect it. Now, there is a bit of glare here that I thought I'd addressed when I was setting up my camera, but I promise for next time I will do a better job at fixing the lighting. For the rest of the video, there will be a little bit of lighting issue on this side of the field, specifically on the right for the left-hand player. Here we see our opponent summon a Desiree, and that is going to be somewhat of an indicator of the rest of their field. Maybe they're not playing Appaloosa, not Caesar, not Varudras, right? Because those are all things that are deemed not for sure necessary by the new Yubel players. And another important thing to note here is, as we're watching our opponent play, it seems they didn't end on Unchained Trap cards. Either they forgot to use Shavara, which, respectfully, my opponent was pretty nervous, so it's possible that happened. They drew it, or they don't play it. So it's something that's going to be on my mind for this game, because even if I can't break through this field, which is going to be very hard considering it's Appaloosa, Desiree, and Phantom at the very least, I need to be conscious of that if that face-down card is not an Unchained Trap, then he may not play one. So anyways, I'll lead off here with Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus, and pretty much I'm just trying to force through interrupts and see how much knowledge he has with my cards, and if he'll make any mistakes that I can then capitalize on. One of the best ways to kind of force through Appaloosa is if you can get to SP Little Knight, because the SP Little Knight will beat the Appaloosa. It means that they use the negate, you can chain SP, target itself, or any of the monster plus the Appaloosa, and it will no longer be able to reduce the attack, therefore bring through the negate. So me resolving this Sapphire Pegasus here doesn't mean I get to threaten the Appaloosas to some degree. Now, it isn't great because it doesn't mean I don't get to banish off the SP Summon, which would be fantastic if I could, and the best way to make SP into an Appaloosa would be under those circumstances. It also means that later I'm trying to hit their grind game, I can't SP again, so maybe a second SP would have come up here. But I still think it is my only shot of playing through this field. So next up, I go Engraver, putting into Grave, and this gets Appaloosa. I figure a great way to chew through interrupts using the SP All Knight. And if it doesn't get stopped, then I can just keep throwing on bodies and try to get to the Engraver on field with the Requiem as material, because that's going to do the same thing anyways. So here I get to Requiem, I use the effect, and the Appaloosa gets used there, which is fine, because now the Appo is engraved, and I can shuffle back the Lurie to bring back Engraver and still equip Requiem and have that send. So here you see my SP does trade for 2 negates. It's going to eat the Phantom and one of the hits off Appo, meaning now the only interrupts that are public to me are going to be this Appaloosa and Desiree. 2 negates left, and I still have the Engraver engrave and the Requiem. So he will probably pretty much have to negate Engraver here, which he does. And now if I have more extenders, I am free to play. So this is where I finally use the Millennium cards. I feel like as the most important engine in my deck, I can't afford wasting them as the bait. So yeah, I end up getting the Wedgie Temple, which will now get me into Sengagen, and I can get access to all my bodies plus my Millennium Cross. Next, I go Wedgie Temple, and my pony's Desiree to stop me from accessing my Millennium Engine further. But that's why Cosmic Cyclone is in my deck. Being able to banish the sequence is great, because not only is it going to essentially negate and nullify this Desiree, it's also going to hit the grind game like pretty drastically. The Fainsmith Engine without Sequentia is significantly weaker, so on the backswing it's not going to be as bad, which is going to, you know, help us a lot, because it's not that easy to kill through this field, even if I can break it. So the next step is then going to be making sure I can then stop their follow-up. Next dilemma I'm going to have is what to do with Wedgie Temple. I can place the Rainbow Dragon or even Exodia piece in my hand. So what this accomplishes is the Exodia piece will be vulnerable on the field, but it is technically a free plus because it'll go back in the deck anyways with our Millennium Monk, whereas holding Rainbow Dragon for a discard could be better. So I have to decide if I want vulnerability or if I want value, and I decide value here, and we'll see if that ends up being a mistake. So with that Cosmic there, I am now sort of free to play. It depends largely on if my opponent has that interruption face down, which I don't really know. So I'm going to be able to use Sengaijin here and then special summon, which will get me Millennium Shield, which will then be summoning itself out and getting me Millennium Ankh. So I am down to 1,000 life points singular here, and it's not fantastic. I really don't have too much going for me, because even though I have all this set up, I'm realizing I don't have a great way of clearing the field. Specifically, this Desiree is really troublesome because if I kill it, I'll send any card in my field to the grave. So if I kill it once I have the Exodia in play, I'll lose the Exodia forever. If I kill it before I get my Unstoppable Exodia into play, he can just hit my Exodia piece and I am screwed. So I think I just devised my only plan here is to try to clear the field, hope that he forgets the Yama in grave and doesn't Desiree the right card. So I'm going to try go into Sequentia, Phoenix the Nightmare Pain, and then try and clean up the field with Access Code Talker. So I get to go closed heavens here, and even though I've already gone through Requiem, it's fine because it bridges me back into Sequentia. So my Fiendsmith engine still gets used. It is less efficient, obviously, but 3 bodies, 4 sequence is still a fine trade in my eyes because I'm going to convert into 4 bodies. But then my opponent uses Droplet, and that's not what I expected. The Droplet is kind of brutal because now my plays here are just pretty much Access Code, and that's it. So you know what? F it. I'm just going to go for Access Code and hope my opponent makes a mistake, and it's going to quickly be shown that my opponent did not screw up. I think my opponent actually does forget to use the Desiree. However, they do remember the Yama, which I needed to remember neither. They bring back the Rage, and they Rage the Access Code, and they make SP. And they, instead of hitting Temple, they do hit the right card, or the card in grave. They hit the Exodia piece, and I am boned. So yeah, I scoop it up. But all is not lost there. It's important that I remember I saw there was a Droplet face down. So that means either my opponent forgot to set off Shavara, or they don't play an Unchained Draft card, which is going to be something to keep in mind as we play out the rest of this duel. But either way, I'm heading straight to my side deck, and I'll take out some of my board breakers that are otherwise ineffective when I start, and putting in all of my traps. I decided that Dimensional Barrier could be a solid option here, because between the Fiendsmith fusions and you Aerial Eater, Necroquip, and you Bell fusions, I feel like it actually could cut off a lot of their plays, and their main power would be behind the Unchained package, which they're playing an extremely light package of, both in the main deck and the extra deck. I can set it off of Angel Blue Tears, or I could draw into it or prosper into it, you know, but when I'm playing 60 cards, you do want to give yourself as many good cards as possible. You're not going to draw, even if you play 3 like barriers, like it doesn't mean you'll draw them, and same with all your other tech cards. Okay, so start this game off with Prosperity, which is typically a sign that I'm looking for something specific, because if you could start off your combo without using Prosperity, you'd rather look for the piece you're missing on later, especially if you get interrupted. So I can tell you guys now, this means I have nothing else. I'm pretty sure I just had 0 engine, and my Prosperity into the Sengaijin, it's going to be my only pick here. As cool as Trax may be, or a Cosmic for later, Exodia pieces obviously being worthless, that Sengaijin is a good pick. Draw, however, does thwart my plans. I only have 1 real play, so I go Talon, Select his hand. I see 1 engine card, easy choice at the engine. And I remember I had 2 trap cards in it. I have the D-Barrier I sided in, as well as the Azaroon Angel statue that I search off Silu Hat Rabbit. Our opponent draws for turn Nightmare Throne, which is probably the single best card in their deck they could have drawn. Very upsetting. They destroy Spirit and deck special Yubel, which will mean they can Grave Scrimmer to revive the Spirit. I have to think here, when do I want to time my cards? The problem with Angel Statue that I have here is that I know my opponent has both Droplet and Mourner, so I'm not actually going to be able to use it to negate anything. Instead, I'm going to have an other purpose with it. I'm going to try to use it to block as much damage as possible. The reason why that matters is because my deck does need to pay life points in order to function. I don't have Millennium Cross in hand, and I need to be able to pay life points for Sengaijin to be able to activate. So weirdly, in this deck, life points are a way bigger resource than in the classical Yugi deck. If you're playing against it, you can know that if you find an opening to deal damage, it is often well worth it, because it means they can't always do their maximum potential later on. Here my opponents is starting going through their combo, and I'm trying to bait them as far as possible before committing statue or any back row, you know, just it's good habits. And hoping that forcing them into unorthodox lined with under Barrier Lock is going to be helpful. They can't do Fiendsmith with Sequentia, they can't make Phantom, they can't generate free bodies, and I don't have a monster in field, so they can't do stuff with Nightmare Pain. Now luckily our opponent here does forget to use the effect of Spirit of Yubel, so I will have a bit of a relief. However, them just simply reviving it with Muckracker will guarantee they still get access to it. Now this will lock them into fiends that can't make like the rank 10 here, like Varadras, but this is still going to be a lot for me to deal with. Although they are like not that well off in terms of how they can commit here, right? Like if I live the turn, there's a chance I can break through it depending on how much life points I have, what I draw, because interruption wise, really only the Unchained card is going to stand in my way. The opponent then accesses the Fiendsmith stuff, and this doesn't scare me too much. I have no monsters to pop. I'm kind of just going to set back and chill. Opponent puts the Engraver into play, summons Samsara, and Samsara here is actually kind of annoying. I forgot that was a play they could do, because now it's going to act as an interrupt for any monster effects. So it will directly beat my Sangajin on the next turn, and I will have to draw a way to answer it. Thankfully, though, Yama got linked off, so there's no threatening Unchained cards right now, and I can kind of just chill. Opponent attacks with the Engraver, and I can decide I can save some life points by flipping up the statue. And then they can attack it, but then the only thing that can attack afterwards will be the Muckraker, so I'll deal with 1,000 damage. Unfortunately, our opponent does make a mistake here, but they're going to summon back to the Engraver, and then what they do is they try making Sequentia in an effort to fusion summon. But remember, they're still under D barrier, so that's not going to pan out well for them. What this means is Samsara is no longer going to be a threat to my plays, and I can rely on my follow-up. Because of my Azarun tactic, I am only down by 1,000 life points here, and I can't proceed to play the game properly. I know the last card in hand is a Mourner, so I have to be careful. Thankfully, I drew a Call by the Grave for turn. So you're going to see me play very aggressive with my life points here, paying life. That is knowing damn well there's a Mourner in my opponent's hand that'll do burn damage to me, because if I use like all 3 Millennium monsters and go down to 1,000, I will die. But I need to make sure that's not going to happen. I get to go through the motions. I go through the Golem, get the shield, get the cross. Now I can start accessing my link plays as well. So it's going to be Fiendsmith cards on top of the Exodia pieces here. Now the reason I like the Fiendsmith cards is they fill in a gap with the Millennium cards, because you're going to have to shuffle your entire monster field away after using Millennium Monk, but the Fiendsmith cards will give you follow-up as well as convert into some graveyard-based disruption, like with Beatrice or with Silhouette Rabbit, that can prove to be pretty valuable. And here comes the Ghost Mourner, and like I said, that Callby is right there to deal with it. Now I'm going to use Sequentia to keep playing, and I'm just going to use this to clean up some of my opponent's resources now. So I'm thinking about what the best way of approaching my end field is. So here I'm actually going to make a mistake. I start planning on my turn trying to end on the Millennium Ankh as a line to win, but truthfully, I should not have been looking at Millennium Ankh as my way to win, because if the Exodia gets back to my turn, I'll lose 1,000 life points. Remember, because I took 1,000 life points damage from Muckraker, that happens, I will actually lose the game on my own accord. So here I'm fixating on something else. For some reason, what I'm fixating on is cutting off the Fiendsmith Package so I don't die to Lacrima Burn, which is still an impactful thing to keep track of when you're playing against a Fiendsmith deck as an Exodia deck. But I get kind of sidetracked and miss the real point here. I think throughout this tournament as well, I didn't pay attention to that effect, and also the effect on Millennium Monk to shuffle stuff back in the deck on resolution, so pardon me for forgetting a few of the effects here. As I decide that I want to go for Rainbow Bridge to generate some cards in hand, this will let me do is, because I have a normal summon yet, get some extra bodies, but also some cards in hand that I can discard for Phoenix, draw new cards. That way I can defend myself from the onslaughts of Yubel on the next turn. Alternative was something with Angel Blue Tears, going for D Barrier again. I decided that maybe wouldn't be enough interruptions. Ironically, D Barrier could have been cool as a way of negating my own fusion on my turn so I don't lose 1,000 life points. Although the best thing I probably should have done is to play a Fiendsmith grind game instead of an Exodia grind game. It just wouldn't have panned out very well for me. But here Nightmare Phoenix will clean up the Nightmare Pain, and there's a Yama engraved. They decide not to use it because it wouldn't have done anything anyways. There's no rage, and this side doesn't matter, so I get to attack. And then Millennium Ankh will summon out my Exodia. And this is pretty much a death sentence for me if my opponent passes back and I don't do anything to fix the situation, gain life points, or remove my own Exodia. Here I summon it in defense mode, and the reason for that is pretty simple. If they put up a Nightmare Pain, which is likely they can do, they can crash into the Exodia and kill me, so it's better to leave stuff in defense mode here. With the Exodia Blaze, it's not the biggest deal. I get my Exodia Blaze, and I pass over. Our opponent is going to look at the best way of cracking through the field, and I have to figure out the best way to deal with it. Now, I drew different dimension ground off of the Phoenix, so I did draw something defensive, and I decided that on the summon here, I should just flip it up, just to, why not? And I'm deciding, you know, if it's maybe ever worth holding, but no, just shooting my shot here immediately is the best thing, and that way they can't keep spamming phantoms, and yeah, nothing wrong with that. Pass this turn, and I get to send my Exodia Obliterates, and then nuke the field with the Exodia trap to blow up all cards opponent controls, and then they get to use Yama to revive. There's the last ditch effort, and they think it's not going to be enough, so they concede. And the bluff was kind of real there, because obviously if it gets to my standby phase and I don't draw a way to clear my own Exodia, I do just lose on that spot there, which is pretty bad. Obviously not a situation you want to be in. but mistakes were absolutely made on my behalf. Fortunately, he scooped those to get to go to a game 3, and now we die for the side decks. The problem is, though, there's only like 5 minutes in the clock, so we're going to see what happens when we go second with pretty much no hand traps. Look at my hand, and as expected, no hand traps, no mulch on me either, and they got to play. They have thrown, they have whatever they need, so they kind of blaze through the combos here, and at some point they decide that they don't want to get to Lacrima, or they say they don't want to burn with Lacrima, rather, which confused me. Maybe they forgot. Well, they did tell me after the match that they do not want to win in that way, which I can respect, especially in a local scene where we allow each other to take maybe a little more time. Winning that way can feel very disingenuous, especially if you took your time, you know, figuring out new cards or whatever. So my opponent makes their full field, but time is called in the round, so we don't get further than that, and it ends in a draw. Round 1 is over, and we haven't lost or won yet with Exodia. And my play here could have been better. We saw how me placing the Exodia piece in game 1 ended up being risky. We also saw how my lack of life points management ended up being an issue and should have cost me the game 2. But yes, we'll press forward to the tournament. Hopefully next round we'll do better. All right, for round 2, we once again lose the dice roll, and no hand traps. I'm gonna sit back and watch our opponent does. Opponent starts off with the tract and doesn't really tell us too much about what's going on. Fiendsmiths could be in pretty much any deck. I believe I asked my opponent at the start of the round how many cards were in there. They said they had a 50 card deck, so yeah, I couldn't draw any conclusions just yet on what my opponent was playing. Liberty gets summoned out, and I imagine that generic fiend stuff is about to happen. It'll only be a question of what that converts into later. Opponent gets access to Engraver and places the Requiem into the spell trap card zone. So this is where Necro Quick would come down, but instead they summon Diabellstar. Tells me, oh, well, Snake Eye. So we went from round 1 Yubel to round 2 Snake Eyes. Nothing but meta here, apparently. So now we're kind of just going to sit and watch as our opponent goes through their Snake Eye combo. With no hand traps, all I can do is sit and wait. I remember looking at my hand and seeing a hand with like an Exodia piece, a Crystal Beast, and a bunch of random cards that didn't do too well. So big things I'm going to be looking out here is how they combo and the extra cards once again. If they play like Silhouette Rabbit, if they play Desiree, if they play any Beatrice gimmicks, all that sort of nonsense. As well as see if there's any potential for me to draw a really powerful card off the top. So now we're going to skip once again through this combo and let our opponent get to their end field. Go to the end field and we see our opponent does not end on Desiree, which is going to be important. We are staring down at Palooza, a Flamebridge IP with the Princess Engrave, as well as all the cards in hand. Look at my hand here and I decide, nope, not a damn shot I got at winning this, so let's go to the next. Important thing to do, because if you can't win, you should just concede to save time for the next games. As well as you can conceal information about your own deck. Even if they knew I was playing Exodia at this locals, because it's locals, being able to hide some of the tech cards can still be impactful. I die for the side deck and I go straight into signing on some of my go second board breaker cards, or some go first traps like Skill Drain. We start off game number 2 with Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus, and like almost everyone at this tournament, they are stunned by my Crystal Beast tech cards. And what they do here is simple. They give me the ability to... Oops, that's the wrong card there. Give me the ability to generate bodies to go into the Fiendsmith engine, which will then access whatever I need in my deck, including Wedged Temple, because I can send Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, which could then get me Wedged Temple. So it turns any 2 monsters into a way of accessing my Millennium cards at all times. Which makes me not feel as bad while playing a 60-card deck. But then also, I'm already playing the Crystal Beast package in my Rainbow Bridge setup, so I feel like it just made perfect sense. The other thing is my deck also doesn't contain normal summons, really, so it kind of just all lined up well. They ashed the Rainbow Dragon because they maybe thought I was playing Crystal Beast, which is a good card to ash for actual Crystal Beast. But here, it's not a big deal for me. Now I get to Senkajin and go through the line of setting up my Exodia play. I really Ankh in hand, so I don't have to save life points. And because they already used Ash, I know they can't hold it or anything. I'm not gonna like save the Ankh in hand to like feign any sort of chance of living. I'm not gonna feign that I don't have Ankh for the goal of maybe proving to my opponents that they should Ash Shield. But yeah, I mean that's the reason to do it. Maybe you want to bait Ash and Shield. Doesn't matter to me. So I get to the Wedged Temple. I'm deciding what's worth it here because again I don't really need the shield. I decide that I want to just rather do a setup that puts the Millennium Maiden into this Spell Trap card because that's going to stop targeting, which against Snake Eye is pretty good. They don't have that many outs to untargetable monsters. You're going to be looking for Snake Eye Bellstar as the way to threaten. So I felt like it was good to do that. And the body wasn't super important here, right? 3 bodies should be enough to do what I need. What I want to be trying to do is go through a Beatrice line, trigger Angel of Bootiers, get a trap, and then afterwards go for Silhouette Rabbit to put a second continuous trap face down. That way I can back up my Exodia fusion monster with several powerful traps, and I should be winning. Here I'm just double checking, seeing I want to put the maid in there. I don't need the body off shield, and the life points isn't more important, so I'm expanding. So just doing some careful deliberation, and I explain to my opponent what Maiden does. And next I'm going to be going into my Fiend Smith line. I know a lot of people may be unhappy to see me playing the Fiend Smith cards being meta cheap and whatnot. And I mean, yes, like the Fiend Smith cards are like a lot of cards people don't like. I actually don't mind them. I think they're really cool. They are very strong, don't get me wrong, and Beatrice is probably, or not probably, definitely is too powerful to exist. But I think the cards are very cool, and I'm not mad about their existence. So I will play them in pretty much any deck I can. I know they're expensive, and that sucks if you're trying to build a budget deck, but I already have the cards, so unless I'm making a specifically budget-themed content for you guys, which I will do, but yeah, unless that happens, I will play them, because I enjoy them. They're flexible, they're splashable, and they're good. Before you say this is a Fiendsmith deck, no, people that are commenting that are idiots. It's a 5-card engine in a 60-card deck. It is not a Fiendsmith deck. It plays Fiendsmith cards, but it's not a Fiendsmith deck. Anyways, getting impermanent sequential here, which is going to mean we don't get access to Beatrice, which is important. No DDG is going to be kind of saddening. That's one of your absolute best disruptions for Snake Eyes, especially when you back it up with the Exodia Obliterates and the Negate from the Unstoppable Force. So here I'm just making sure there's nothing else I can do. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Just Engraver effects will suffice. And then I can throw Silhouette Rabbit into place. So I'm going to have follow-up in the Graver Grave, as well as disruptions from my Exodia and from my Azaroon statue. So here we summon out our gorgeous QCR Silhouette Rabbit, and yeah, I think this card is so underrated. And even though it is getting some appreciation now, I don't think it is given enough credit. So here I'm going to show off all my Exodia pieces and shuffle back all my cards back into the deck. Assemble my 5 pieces, and bam, my unstoppable Exodia Incarnate hits the board. Here, remember, I forget to shuffle back the Ankh into my deck. It is supposed to go back in. I don't know if that matters for pretty much anything, but it is technically me forgetting a part of the effect of the card, so you know, just be careful. And I proceed to the end phase, and I get to resolve the effect, and I'm feeling pretty good. And obviously 2 hand traps did dampen our plays quite a bit, but with only 4 cards in their hand, I still have a decent shot of winning the game here. I get my Exod Blaze here for the Regeki-esque effect, and now I have my Spell Trap Negates, my Regeki, and my Angel Statue to thwart my opponent's 4-card hand. As well as my Maiden will make my Unstoppable Exodia untargetable, meaning that if it gets to a follow-up, then my Exodia Obliterate should get the job done. My opponent leads Bonfire here, and I deliberate a bit if it's worth me negating with Exodia Incarnate, but I feel like this is bait for some other non-engine or triple attack talents to go through. I'd rather stop the Snake Eye package with my trap card, the Exod Obliterates, than rather use my negate here for the Incarnate, especially because if he has a Snake Eye Ash in hand, then he's going to get to Poplar anyways, and I really gain pretty much nothing in terms of trying to choke on my opponent by stopping Bonfire. But I let Bonfire resolve. I decide I'm just double checking to make sure my mentality is accurate, and with that they get to add to the deck to hand, and they add Snake Eyes Ash, not Poplar, which is important to kind of know. It means they either have no normal summons in hand, or they have something that requires me to control no cards on field. So they were doing a bait for something evenly matched or a Lightning Storm. I bring up the Maiden here because if they have talents, I can just negate it. I want to make my guy untargetable for the future. Next up is Engraver, which is fine, and they're going to add Track to hand, and if they use the Track, it pretty much signals to me that this is some bait. I will have to be careful because if they get to Engraver, then they can go Engraver, second Engraver, then go Sequentia, kind of level their way up and deal with my Exodia Trap card a bit sooner than I'd like. So I want to make sure that they can't get 2 bodies on field before keeping the normal summon, because that's what's going to be dangerous. So with this Track here, I'm not going to negate it because the Spell Trap Negate is more important. What I'm going to do is summon Angel Statue once the Lure enters the field. Now the reason to do this is because if I wait any sooner, they get to go Engraver effect, bring it out, and then equip with Requiem and hit the Azaroon. And if I don't use the Azaroon, then they get to do the Fiendsmith play as I talked about that would threaten my other trap. And because both traps were set off card effects, they're going to know where each is, and they could easily Phoenix or SP the one they desire. Specifically, this Blaze here is going to be something I'm scared of. I summon the statue so that I can negate Requiem, which doesn't feel like a very high value summon, but it's in line with our game plan. This does mean it's going to reopen my weakness to Evenly and Lightning Storm type cards, but I still have the Spell Trap Negate, so it's not a real weakness. And if they had 2 paired together, they would have used it already. So next, they're going to follow up with Lightning Storm, which we did hypothesize was a potential card in their hand. I have to negate this, otherwise I lose my Exodia Trap, which is definitely a more powerful card. And then we're going to see what else the opponent has. We know the Snake Eye Ash, and we can deal with this, However, we can't deal with the last card in hand if it has another extender. They're going to get Poplar and they special from the deck. And I actually talked about it with my opponent after the match here. Now, the only way of really dealing with this Exodia is going to be attacking it with a Snake Eye Bellstar, putting in the small trap card zone. That's the approach they're going to take. So if they're doing so, what they should do is add Temple here. But then before they use Temple, they should use Snake Eye's Ash to send itself plus Poplar, and Flame Bridge from the deck. What this means is they'll get Snake Eye Bellstar from Temple and threaten the Exodia trap card there. If they use the trap card there, then Flame Bridge will trigger, they'll bring back 2 bodies, and then between the Feast with cards and the Snake Eye cards, they can try and get into the plays via another way, like with Beatrice. There was still potential there for our opponent to make a powerful play. However, I decide here that if I don't use the Obliterates, that the Snake Eye Bellstar will generate enough value that I can't deal with, and I nuke the field. Trying to enter a ground game versus Snake Eyes is typically a mistake, and I am not trying to do that. So I nuke the field, and they throw back the Poplar and small trap card zone, and then I have out of disruptions here, so it is going to depend largely what they do next. Now, my Exodia is untargetable and undestructible right now, so it's not going to be a huge weakness, but it's not the worst either. Summon the Engraver, and because of my target protection, it's not going to matter too much. Engraver can send a card, they can send the Maiden, but the actual card that matters is safe here. My opponent decides it's not worth it anyways, and I get to go next. And now, in my head, I forgot to use the effect to send in the end phase. I should have set the Obliterate to end the game, but obviously I made a poopsie. I'm like, oh damn, I was so focused on the Maiden Requiem thing and the fact that it didn't go to the grave, I just forgot to set the Obliterate. But I have enough resources that it shouldn't really matter. Use the Engraver, clear the field, and then go battle phase, and it should just be. Now in order to do that, I have to get to the Requiem Mount, and it's the general process. You guys know how it goes. This Exodia does have enough attack points that it should close out the game by itself. I've only paid the 1,000 for its effect to stay on the field. Clean it up, a battle phase, and the rest should be game. Just like that, Exodia obliterates. Now we get to go to game number 3. And it's time for the side deck to once again come into action. Side out those going first cards and throw in some of those board breakers as well as some extra board breakers we had on our side, specifically Phantasme and Molt-Charmy, to get us closer to the powerful cards like Dark Ruler no more. We start off the game with a Molt-Charmy Perilia, and this is a fantastic way to start the game because now every time our opponent's going to summon, they are going to give us a draw. And Snake Eye usually does so around 2 to 3 times, and that amount of card difference will make a huge impact if we draw non-engine. And I'm pretty sure I did. It's going to leave me in a pretty good spot. Now we're going to sit and watch as our opponent is going to find a way to combo. And my opponent is playing the Silvera trap card to set off Bellstar the Black Witch. So now once again, we'll fast forward as your opponent starts going through their combo. Now one important thing does happen. When they use their Snake Eye Ash effect to summon Flame Burge, they end up not having any in their decks. They're forced to summon from hand, which is a huge swing because that's a card that I get to draw and one less card in their hand for the comeback. They start proceeding through their plays. They get a Black Mount, which is going to present a bit of burn damage, which can be a bit annoying for this deck. And then they start thinking the best way to access their Beatrice, which they will start to get to. And with all that in mind, that Silvera setup I talked about will be there, as well as a lot of the standard field. So when it ends, we have to deal with the Silvera, the Flameburge IP in the Appaloosa, as well as the Princess Engrave, and 2 unknowns in our opponent's hand. We do, however, have several extra cards to combat this, and I have just what I need. So I have Dark Ruler and Evenly in our hand, so the Silvera isn't going to be a huge problem. I have to decide, however, which I do want to use first, and I decide that I can deal with the Appaloosa, but rather force the Silvera on the Dark Ruler and then Evenly afterwards, especially because it may hit the grind game pretty substantially when Flameburge floats all the resources back. So here Oak and Snake Eye Ash are summoned. They generate a bunch more resources, which are almost fake. It's important to remember that when Snake Eye starts doing all this nonsense and adding all these cards in your turn, the cards they're adding almost really just deck thinning. They don't draw them in the future. The cards that get here are not super meaningful. Now, obviously, they can come up in grind games as like very low value bodies, but the difference in power level between Snake Eyes playing from the start versus once they've expended a lot of their deck is ridiculously large. So don't give up too fastly when you get into a grind game versus this deck. Next up for me is going to enter battle phase, and you can see my opponent wince a bit because they know what is about to happen. I would not enter battle phase position unless I had a very clear objective. I did draw Phantasme as well here for turn, and it gave me a reason that maybe I should do this the other way around, where I go Evenly then Dark Ruler, because when the Temple drags up the IP, I could use Phantasme to keep fixing my hands. I decided, however, that this is the better way of doing it, having only the Apple to deal with afterwards. as well as cutting off so much more of the follow-up. Evenly resolved and effectively lose all the different cards. We're on to main phase 2. Still having to deal with the 2-material Appaloosa. I am left with a bit of an awkward hand. I drew both my one of Millenniums that don't summon themselves immediately. However, with the Apple in field, they're not too big of a deal. And like before, I can pretty much use them to threaten SP once that Appaloosa is used. So because I drew both the Stone Golem and Sengaijin in my hand, I don't actually have to worry about being negated, because I can then make SP, get the Wedju Temple, place it back, spell trap cards anyways, and I'll be okay. My opponent doesn't Appaloosa here, and then they realize the mistake of not being able to negate the Sengaijin. They can only negate effect in hand, because the spell trap card zone effect is spell and trap effect. Not to negate the shield will be pretty much the same thing, but I have the Sengaijin already in play. So in reality, their play did not change much. Now I get out my 2 Millennium monsters, and I can turn them into the SP Little Knight, like I did before to threaten this Appaloosa. However, here SP Little Knight is not necessarily the best course of action. Before, when I adjusted the 2 bodies up, it made the most sense, but now I feel like I can make Duels instead to draw cards, and that'll effectively bait out Appaloosa. And if it doesn't, it could bait a hand trap, and if still nothing, and I draw nothing as well, then I can make SP and still be in the same position. So I feel like Duels is a better way of forcing it out, and holding the SP that I can use for later to banish a card on the grave, or shuffle it back into the deck with Millennium Ankh. Here my opponent does use Appaloosa, and I'm now in the free to start playing. Now, if I didn't already have another Millennium monster in my hand, I could always go for the Fiendsmith package as my way of accessing my Rainbow Bridge package. But in this case, I did not need to. I already have it, so I can access the Wedju Temple and then proceed from there in terms of all my playing abilities. Now, because I already have the shield in hand and I've already used every other Millennium name, this temple isn't going to place something good. It'd be nice to have another Millennium monster I can place, like Maiden or Fiend Reflection. However, I don't think you really need more than one of each. So one thing I did notice, though, from today is that the life points mattered a bit more than I would have liked. Maybe a second Fiend Reflection will come up, despite seemingly not feeling like a very good card. Next up, we're going to pay 2,000 more life points and summon out our Millennium Shield and grab Millennium Ankh. Now, this will bring me down to about 800 life points before the Reflection gain. I think Reflection gained me like 600 life, so 1,400 total. That means that even with 1,000 burn for my Fusion monster, I will not kill myself on my coming turn. Now, my biggest goal is going to be clearing their follow-up as well as setting up my own plays. The first thing I'm going to do is proceed into the Fiendsmith package. I still be conscious of what hand trap my opponent may have. I know most of what my opponent has, but there are still 2 unknowns that I do not know about. So I get the Engraver, and that's going to give me good access to kill the Appaloosa. Being in main phase 2, it's not super simple to clear stuff. Now, obviously, SP access code exists, but they are heavy investment of resources that you could use elsewhere. Baldric gets used the Requiem, so now my Fiendsmith plays are kind of awkward. I don't have enough life fiends that I'd really want to make my plays fully, but because I'm not playing a link deck, the amount of bodies don't matter too much. I can still function just fine with what I have, and I don't need to end on like Desiree or anything, so making a seemingly lackluster Lacrimosa is actually just fun. So here I just go deep into thought, thinking what my best course of action is going to be. What traps could I set with Beatrice or with Hat-Trick? Do I go after the grave with SP? Do I go Lizard Haggardos for the draw? It's going to be those questions that I have to deliberate between that make up my next moves. So I ended up deciding that Sequence is the best course of action, being able to summon Lacrima, generating 1 more Link body, and resetting a Requiem for next turn. It does mean losing the Engraver access for now, but it's not the end of the world, as we will have still any 2 monsters turning into Engraver in the future, as well as the Exodia card should be carrying the rest of this game. So here I leave up the Golem in case I decide to go for a rank 6, but truthfully with Lacrima and the Golem, the better play is to SP. SP can hit a card on the grave, one of the resource cards that could be scared of, and then the last 2 bodies in field can be turned to access code to clean up everything else. This does mean I'm not setting any sort of disruption off of my bodies, but I am cleaning up their resources and field pretty effectively. I decided to SP Engraver because, again, with my life points low, I don't leave myself at risk of dying to Lacrima. And if I leave myself weak to Lacrima, and I also have to use my Exodia trap particularly early, which I do not want to do. Again, I forget to shuffle back my Ankh, but not a huge deal. It really doesn't do anything in the grave, but yeah, definitely still just oopsies. We go to the end phase, and like nothing else, I set my trap and call it a turn. It's going to be on our opponents to now close out the game. One thing that happened during the whole Dark Ruler exchange is my opponent started Dramatic Chase on the extent that I wasn't expecting in the Snake Eye deck. And that Dramatic Chase isn't going to be a huge deal. However, what it does do is put a card in the spell trap card zone from the deck that can be sent off for Snake Eye. So there's something I'm going to have to pay a little bit of attention to. First thing to do is start off with Original, and with what I'm pretty sure is no Poplars left in the deck, this does effectively nothing. I don't want to use my Exodia negate on this in case they do something for turn, as well as if I can use it on Dramatic Chase, it is kind of better. Back Flamebridge, which is kind of a problem if they get to use Snake Eye Ash again. Now, I see later that my opponent had a second Flame Merge in their deck. But either way, I don't want them to be able to resolve Snake Eye Ash regardless. Them getting access to other cards is going to be a problem anyways. So with that Flame Merge back in their deck, I just have to make sure the Dramatic Chase doesn't resolve, and I should be okay. They normal Snake Eye Ash, and it just doesn't do anything, so not a problem. I think they just check, make sure they have nothing left, and I'm pretty sure the answer is just no. So now I have to go Dramatic Chase, place the last card for Flame Merge, and I just negate that again, trying to deny that Snake Eye Ash. Think about it for a second to make sure that it's worth it, but yeah, I don't want to use my Exodia pop here. I'd rather not. I'm just making sure that I can negate it because I know Silvera has an effect on the graveyard that protects your Sinful Spoils effects. So making sure it doesn't also apply to Snake Eye spells. Doesn't, so I'm safe here to negate this. And now our opponent really doesn't have any sort of way to break through here. So I'm pretty sure they set a card, proceed to the end phase, and we can proceed to end the duel. Use Dramatic Chase to steal my second engine, which is pretty funny, but that's not going to be enough. I set my Exodia Obliterate, 1,000 life points in the standby phase, but it's not going to be enough. Exodia Obliterate does end this duel. Okay, so we proceed to round number 3. 2 rounds to go, and we are 1-0-1. If we win the next 2 rounds, we will be undefeated at locals, so that is going to be the goal for today. I do have to warn you guys that the next 2 rounds unfortunately had some camera issues, so on top of the glare, they will end a bit short, but I'll make sure you know what happens, and also they didn't end that short, so you still get to see how most of the match plays out, and it'll be pretty obvious how it ends by the time it ends up cutting. Now, all there is to do is shuffle up. It's time to duel. So for once, I managed to win my first dice roll, and it leaves me thrilled. I get to go first and show off, hopefully uninterrupted, what my deck is supposed to do. I start off with Sengajin, and I already drew Ankh, so I get to save myself the life points, which is nice. I've already seen before how much life points can matter, especially with Fiendsmiths doing some extra burn here and there. And no longer having to use that is a nice upside. I grab my Yugioh Temple and I press forward from there. Next, what I want to use is Prosperity. So the reason I'm using it here is now that I know my Yugioh Temple and stuff is resolved, I'm pretty sure there's no Ash Blossom. I already have Ankh, which is safe. I want to see if I can hit a monster off of Prosperity to place with Temple. I hit Pegasus, Crispy's Rainbow Dragon, and Golem. And Golem is an easy no for me, but the other two are interesting. With Pegasus, I can place Crispy's Rainbow Dragon, and then get Rainbow Dragon in hand, and then another Pegasus on the field, and then place the Rainbow Dragon with Yugioh Temple. I decided, however, to go Yugioh Temple, place Crispy's Rainbow Dragon. What this essentially does is lets me keep the Rainbow Dragon in hand, which I can later use to discard for like Droplet, Nightmare Phoenix, or for Yugioh Temple in the future. Here I decided to put the Maiden instead of the Fiend Reflection spell trap card zone. That way I can get the target protection. I figure it's also more worthwhile than a card like Shields to get another Ankh when I realistically just don't need it. So I go Engraver, and it's time to go into the Fiendsmith lines. Now, uninterrupted, my plan here is to go for Beatrice, Angel Tears, and then Sula Hatreb. I get Impermanent again on sequence, so gonna have to do the same thing I did before, where I just summon the Engraver and then go into Rabbit. I get my Azrine statue out, and then I'm going to shuffle away my Rabbit with Ankh. And once again, yes, I forgot to shuffle away Ankh, but I promise you that'll happen every time this video. Yep. So here my opponent just double checks what all my cards do, which is sure the right thing to do. And then I get to access my ultimate Exodia, revealing 5 pieces. And thankfully this time I did not draw any, which is partially why I had to use Prosperity for a monster. And I get to throw all my Exodia pieces into play, and voila! We have our giant boss monster. Unfortunately, we got met with a Nibiru, the Primal Being. Which is a bit of a problem, you know, that is going to, I mean, we can't do an Exodia, and because he can't special for us the turn, I actually can't do much past this. So Nibiru versus the normal Millennium deck, it doesn't do much because they only summon 4 times. For my deck, it does matter a lot more. I will have some stuff afterwards, like I still have I would have the Beatrice stuff that went through, and I have the Engraver engrave, and I have the Trap face down, so it's not like I auto lose, but it does definitely suck. So I talented their hand, and I saw the Tempai monster, which is not good. That means I'm dead to pretty much anything. And when the Prosperity reveals Terraforming, I'm like, crap, I should be dead. This game is probably just over. But still, I will just hold out, because for a couple reasons. For one, I have the Maiden, which is an illusion monster, can't be destroyed by battle, and the Azrine statue, which can kill anything that kills it by battle, but also negate a Synchro Summon if they play into it. So what I'm going to have to do is hope my opponent makes a mistake, and I can capitalize on that and therefore win. So they add Genroku, they discard the other Prosperity, so I still don't own the last card in their hand. And I'm just hoping they don't know how to deal with the cards I just mentioned. Now, you know, why it also matters as well is when you're in a losing spot like this, Just try to put your opponent in awkward scenarios that aren't, you know, intuitive and like straightforward with the deck, like something they've practiced for, because that's when you'll see your opponents make mistakes and mess up. And I mean, in order to win Yu-Gi-Oh, that's going to happen quite a bit, where you have to have your opponent mess up, or you kind of lead them into messing up by just making these unorthodox plays. Here, my opponent can't deal with my maiden. They spawn a bunch of monsters, and if they hadn't prosperity away Kai Belts, then Kai Belts would deal with this, and they would just win. And I'm sure there's maybe other things they can do as well. Something with the Trident Dragon being able to pop a monster, or just turning it to attack mode, maybe to be enough damage that way. However, my opponent does not do that, and then just go straight to main phase 2, not realizing what they can do. So something goes Striker Dragon, and once they do that, I can flip up Azarune. I didn't flip it up in the end of battle phase because then they can keep going with the battle phase, and then they get first action Striker Dragon. But now they did this, I can at Erratic Seal. I can get the Erratic Seal summon. Fun goes SP, but they have to remember they are locked into dragons via Genroku, so I cannot do that. Can only make Erratic Seal. And if they do that, then they will promptly lose to the statue. So yeah, they make the Erratic Seal. I get to negate. And they decide that the best course of action is to nuke the field with Black Rose, leaving ourselves on somewhat equal terms. Obviously, I have my Engraver stuff. However, they don't know that I already have a second Ankh in hand, so I'm going to win the game. Ankh can't dash it. They ask if what they can do to it. I'm like, nothing. You're going to need Valor for the Forbidden one in order to have a chance. And I don't think they do. So yeah, show them the 5 Exodia pieces, and they are going to be dead. And because I have full life points, 8,000, this will just attack directly for 8,000 damage. Just like that. One punch, obliterate. Now we're going to dive into game 2, and I feel pretty comfortable with this matchup because I feel like I'm setting a lot of diversified interruptions with Lingering Floodgates, Trap interruptions, and Monster interruptions. So it's going to be hard for them to break my field. Hand traps aren't that effective versus my deck either, so I feel good in both dynamics. They shouldn't really want to let me start, but obviously, like, enough good cards will threaten me to the point where I can't win going first, so it's still, like, somewhat reasonable. That being said, I do side D barrier. You already saw from the UL game, so that's going straight in. And instead of setting DDG off of Angel Blue Tears, I will just rather set D barrier. And versus Tenpai, even if it doesn't end the game immediately on the spot, if you have, like, almost anything else to back it up, it should be enough. So look at my hand that I'm blessed with several different non-engine cards plus several Millennium monsters. I should be able to get to my engine pretty effectively, and without getting hand trapped here, I do get to get everything rolling. Now with Millennium cards in play, it's going to mean I have Fiendsmith access in case I get stopped somewhere else. And if I don't get stopped here, then my Exodia will come into play. I do have to pay 6,000 life points here, but thankfully having the Fiend Reflection means I can heal a little bit. And also, I will not immediately die to my Exodia burn effect either way. Versus Tenpai, leaving myself pretty low can be scary. Not that I have too much choice. Unfortunately, however, my camera does die just about here. So yeah, very unfortunate. So let me walk through the rest of the line. With the 3 bodies in play, it's go to the Fiendsmith cards, you get the Engraver out, I summon my Link 2. With the Closed Moon, we get to the Engraver. They make Sequentia. Sequentia will make Lacrima, but bring back Engraver. Beatrice will send the Angel Loot Tears. I make Silhouette Rabbit and set D-Barrier from the deck, and I set Azarune Statue from the deck. There I Ankh, summon Exodia. I set my Exodia Blaze from the deck, and I have a Regeki, I have a Negate Summon, and I have a Dimensional Barrier for Synchros. I think I also had a drop it. I set face down alongside it, and it was more than enough to ensure my opponent could not win. I think my opponent was able to kind of crack through some stuff, but at the end of it, they had 0 cards left. I still had to follow up, and they were just boned. So that leaves me with a decisive 2-0 against Tenpai. My only die roll win was against Tenpai. Great. But one match away from going undefeated as locals. We got this. All right, so we make it to round 5, and we have lost the roll once again, which means, yes, we have now only won a roll versus Tenpai, which is just like, of course, very classic tournament experience, I feel like. That's okay. We can't complain that much. We're doing all right. Our opponent, however, is playing Flu, which is, I'm not sure how good of a matchup that is for me. I feel like it's not the worst because I can play Under Shifter some bits, and I don't like need the Graveyard, although I do like it because I play Engraver and all that sort. As well as I don't need my normal summon, so I don't play into like Fluanri's math that much. That being said, M-Pen is a very good card. So are like so is Dreaming Town. My opponent gets to do all their Flu nonsense, set up the field, and I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens. Although nothing really is going to surprise me here. Cycling through all the different birds. Who doesn't love Flu? I don't get it, man. I think Flu is actually like, I think Flu is like not that terrible of a deck in terms of like its toxicity, but I don't know, just I have so much PTSD from getting Barrier Statue and floodgated by Shifter and all that nonsense. I don't want to deal with it. Anyways, he sets 2, and you can see I have a Cosmic in hand, and my game plan is going to be simple. I want to Cosmic the Dreaming Town in standby phase because it leaves it vulnerable, and I hit it, which is great. So I missed the dead back row. Now second back row could still be a real card, so I have to play around as if it is, but if it isn't, then I'm fine. I realize my hand cannot play through Featherstorm or Dreaming Town face down, so I'm just gonna, as active either don't exist. Next thing I want to do is then deal with the Penguin. That way I can use my effects like the Exodia to attack over it, or attack, I mean, in general for game and all that sort. So I decide, okay, you know what, let's get the Tracta, most importantly, artillery. Then it becomes obvious I can't use Requiem because M-Pen stops activations. It doesn't say you can't activate. It doesn't say negate the effect. It prevents activations. So instead I'm like, okay, it's fine because I already have access to Engraver. I fuse by benching Tract, get rid of the Requiem and Engraver, Lacrima, back to Engraver. I still have the Requiem in play, and then I can send off the M-Pens. Now I'm free to go. Next up, I'm going to Phoenix the back row because I already have Ankh in hand, and with no way to stop this, all I have to do is clear the way. And having no life points paid, this 8,000 attack Exodia is just going to one-shot my opponents. I hit the evenly match. Okay, it was dead. I don't need to use Rainbow Bridge. All I got to do is making sure there's nothing. I'm like, all right, Ankh. Like, they need Valor or they lose. And show 5 pieces. One's in my hands, I think. Or, I think I only showed 4. I only showed 4. Yeah, there's the 5th one. Throw them all back. Yes, I've got to put back Ankh back in my deck again. But Exodia, obliterate. The swift game where we managed to pull it off. Wait. I paid 1,000 for Cosmic Cyclone. No, but I burned 1,200 with Lacrima, right? Yeah, I burned 1,200 with Lacrima. That's what it was. Yeah, no, I burned 1,200 with Lacrima. I really hope I did. If I didn't, no, I did. I had to have because it's the whole point of the play. Unless I made the mistake. But yes, okay, it was game. Wasn't a complete one shot, but it's still game. But anyways, we go straight to the side deck, and the side deck is a bit awkward here because some of my go first cards are like barrier, so it's gonna be kind of awkward when it gets to that point. But as for siding for going second, I have Molt Charmies in my deck. I decided to put Skill Drain in because I can break the field, but I get flooded by like Featherstorm or Shifter. Then backing up with a Skill Drain to keep me alive is going to be pretty good. Obviously paying life points isn't great, but Skill Drain with the powerful Millennium Monsters is still worthwhile, I feel like, as well as the constant, you know, value of the Fiendsmiths makes it fine enough that I don't mind skill draining myself, even if it means detracting from the immediate Exodia game plan. The opponent starts off this game with Prosperity once again, or Duality, my bad. And they change Shifter, so I'm like, all right. And this is a bit annoying for me because I think I do actually Full Spiral Goods, which is otherwise a fantastic card. I haven't got to use like all tournament so far, but now it's going to be dead card in my hand. They reveal map, they get to Stree, Rabina, and they get to do everything. I have nothing here, so I'm going to just patiently wait and see what they have. No Molt Charmy to get excess value. It's going to be kind of depending on my breakers. They get the trap. I'm like, okay, cool. And then they set 3 and pass. So I'm looking here. The best way to deal with it is, and I have a Prosperity. I'm like, okay, you know what? If I can Lightning Storm here, that'd be great. I also have a Dark Ruler already in hand, so I'm really looking for the specific back row removal. That's why I don't mind being aggressive with my Prosperity here. Hitting 6. Because it is kind of annoying in this deck, Prosperity for 6. Although it's not the end of the world. The Fiendsmith cards just take up so much space. It feels like Prosperity leaves just Fiendsmith cards. I see the Lightning Storm there, and it's pretty obvious to me that's what I'm going to take. I can play after the fact, and it's not the end of the world. I already have an Ankh, so I can just kind of clean up the field with Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler, and then Ankh, set up some follow-up. I have a Skill Drain in hand as well. Stabilize, and then I'll be okay. I chain Lightning Storm, they chain Dreaming Town, Advent, and then Barrier. Damn it, they call fusions. Now I can't use Ankh. Now, between the Shifter and the Barrier, I am caught off of the Grave and Fusions, meaning I can't really do anything. I'm like, okay, I still have Skill Drain, so what I'm going to do here is I'll set the Skill Drain, and as long as I can put enough damage up, I'll be fine. They add Snowl, they summon Snowl, and the way it works with the amount of damage left here is that they don't have enough to kill me unless they can summon 2 Flues, so they need a map to do so, and I think, did they add map? I think I may have added map, so I may have been guaranteed dead here, but I figure I may as well try. I'm reading Snell, making sure it doesn't do anything impressive. It doesn't. So, I mean, this means I may want to Skill Drain the draw phase so I don't get the extra normal summons immediately. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah. If I had any monster to just summon or set here, I feel like I win the game. But unfortunately, my hand is Crystal Beast, Rainbow Dragon, and just like Board Breakers and Ankh, as well as Full Spiral Goods. I think it's like Full Spiral Goods, Ankh, Crystal Beast, Rainbow Dragon, Dark Ruler, no more, and Skill Drain. Yeah, those 5 cards. And it's just any monster I feel like I'd win. Pegasus would be broken because then I get to use Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon's hand effect to summon itself in a Crystal Beast battles and then have a 3k beater under skill drain. That would have been so awesome. That'd be too convenient though. Those Imperial Goods would have set that up. Oh man, why did he have Shifter and Deep Barrier? That's so stupid, so toxic. Yeah, so map gets dropped and I get claps. Yeah, 2 monsters in play and they link. It doesn't matter. I mean, maybe they make a mistake, so I'm gonna like sit there and maybe they screw up. But the random link monsters enough attack points. I had enough attack points anyways. Yeah, so I lose. We're heading to game 3, plenty of time on the clock, which is great. It means that if I get like board breakered, I'm not going to lose to the quick play spell. Wandery's getting 200 life points. Nor me burning myself, which was a problem with this deck. You need to make sure you have ample time to play when you go first, not just going second. And thinking, what do I side here? I end up keeping the Mulch Charmies in my deck, because if I get shifted and my hand is weak, I could pass Mulch Charming them, draw into like Duster, Droplet, Cosmic, and then those cards would then be able to crack back. And I mean, this is over cards like Dark Ruler and Evenly in my deck, which would otherwise be really terrible. This suck. I mean, these aren't cards I really want my deck going first, but you don't always plan for more of the rogue decks like Flu when you're building out a side deck plan. I mean, this is the most rogue deck I've played, right? I've played Tenpai, Snake Eye, and Yubel, and I feel like my side deck's been really prepared for all of those up until this point. All right, so we get into Duel 3 now. This is going to be the last duel of the tournament. Can we walk away undefeated with Exodia? And I'm looking at my hand here, deciding what the best way of approaching this is going to be. And I lead with Pegasus. Shiny Ultimate Crystal Rare. So yeah, I have 3 of these, and I swear there's another video I did as well where I had 3 and I only had 2 ultis in my deck list. This is the same for this one. I don't know why. I don't know what my third one is. I found it and I lost it again, so I have to go find it again. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, so my Pegasus is out here, and I think I decide that I'd rather draw cards with Dugaris because I have the Millennium cards already in hand, and I don't need to go straight into Fiendsmith cards. The extra bodies will serve as Fiendsmith cards anyway, so I'll have enough I have enough bodies to access everything. I don't need to focus on saving bodies. The Garrus draw is fine. You see I get the third Pegasus here. I get the Wedgie Temple, which is going to be access to the Millennium cards. So I go to Garrus draw. Maybe I should have resolved Temple first to guarantee that I have my access to the Millennium cards. I won't lose the Ogre. Yeah, maybe that's a bit better. But yeah, so I get to discard an excess card here. I think I drew another Temple and a Prosperity, which is really shit. Whatever happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just got Rainbow Dragon, and now Temple can place Pegasus and place from deck. So I have to decide what to place. I place Sengenjin there, and then I get to Sengenjin out for shield. And because I already have 2 Wedgie Temples and enough bodies, I decide I don't need to go through Golem here. I'm not going to pay extra life points. I pay 4,000 life points here, which is cool. And I get to do my Engraver shenanigans. And because it's Flu and I don't want to go for my Azaroon statue, I decide to rather go for Lizard Haggardos. Now, if you have extra bodies, this is something you can do anyways, but in order to do this plus Rabbit, it's you need a bit more. But yeah, so what this means is I can banish it to change the monster's attack equal to that of Haggardos, and then I draw a card if I banish the Reptile. So yeah, and I banish Reptile for it, which is great. Simple draw. So between the Dugaris and the Lizard, I draw 3. Then I Beatrice, and I'm going to set Black Goat Laughs off this, not Angel Blue Tears. I'm going to call Rabina or Eaglin. I decided that Eaglin, I think, is the one I want to call. Keeping them off tributes is the best way to stun this deck, because that's the most inaccessible part of the deck typically. So yeah, and then I Ankh and set up my combo. So 4,000 life points, no risk of killing myself in the draw phase here. Very healthy, and I feel like I'm all right. Again, Ankh, put in the grave because I'm stupid. I set some cards, proceed to end phase, and I'm feeling good. I hold a bunch of cards in hand as well. That way, if my field gets cleared with like a double evenly combo and then Flu stuff. Hopefully I keep them off of real play thanks to Black Goat Laughs. And then also the follow-up on the hand should be sufficient. So I set the Exodia Blaze and pass. They draw for turn. I see they do the evening turn, which is annoying. And they go to battle phase, which means, okay, evenly, likely double evenly, or it's evenly plus bait. Now, because I have the Exodia, I can get the first one. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'm just going to make sure that there's nothing crazy going on. And so evenly 1 get dropped on the gates, evenly 2 get dropped. All right. I have to decide between saving Cosmic and Droplet I have face down. I decided that I'd rather save the Droplet because, I mean, it just hits more. I mean, even hitting Rabina is not the best, and Eaglin's not there. I feel like the Droplet can be way more versatile hitting M-Pen, which can be a problem if they hard you M-Pen. I said, okay, I'll keep the Droplet. I call it. Before the battle phase ends, though, I call the Eaglin off of Echo Laughs. They Duality for 3. They get Advent, Duster, and I can't remember the third one. I can't see what it is. Oh, they add prosperity. Okay. So they're gonna keep looking for something else. I don't actually remember what they were looking for here. So they get to prosperity, banishing 6 cards from their deck. I think specifically they were looking for map actually, and they do hit map with prosperity, I think. And map is annoying. Maybe it means I should have held Cosmic Cyclone. They get map there. And I'm curious here, if what they reveal off this, they reveal Stree. Yeah, so maybe I should have held Cosmic. I don't know. I don't stop this Ramina because Ramina doesn't seem like it matters, right? And well, at this point, stopping Ramina doesn't do anything. By Cosmic this field spot, I feel like I would have won the game, but obviously, tough shit. I'll get the Ramina back, and obviously dropping Ramina doesn't matter because they haven't used their actual normal summon yet. If they have M-Pen, they get to do it anyways. If they don't have M-Pen, this does nothing. Summon England for no effects, but then they tribute it off for Ryza, which is not as bad as M-Pen, but still kind of annoying. Remember, because of Daenerys, I don't have a draw phase this turn, so I'm going to lose follow-up from the Engraver because of Stree. I'm going to lose cards because of the Ryza here, as well as partially my safety net and droplet. Because I have Prosperity in hand, I decided to let the Ryza resolve so I can try I can hit the droplet off Prosperity. So yeah, if I feel like I need it, I can always get the droplet access there. I'm still feeling okay because I have a second Engraver actually that I drew in hand. And I drew it off the Lizard, so I can go Temple, place the Engraver, and be okay. But then my opponent's thrusts for Dreaming Town, and now it gets kind of scary because now they have the Ryza Book of Moon set up, and I now have a bit of a predicament. I don't have another monster. If this Dark Ruler in my hand was anything else, a monster, I'd be fine. I can droplet and away the Engraver and use my field spell appropriately, but now I don't have a real play. I don't have a draw. My only course of action now is hope my opponent makes a mistake and go from there. Unfortunately, the camera dies again, so I'll play it out. Well, you know every card pretty much I'm playing. My opponent has some birds in hand, which doesn't matter. They'll cycle each other. The Ryza with the Dreaming Town face down and the field spell up. So I can't normal summon, otherwise I'll lose. So that's fine. I don't really need to normal summon. I have Prosperity, knowing the top 2 cards in my deck are Shield and Droplet. I have Wedgie Temple in hand. So I have Wedgie Temple, Dark Ruler, and Engraver Prosperity. It's 4 cards. Because I only have 1 monster, pretty much guarantees my only way to play is going to be Temple placing Engraver. And then I can get Shield. Shield gets Ankh, and then Ankh again for the Exodia. Clean up his field, have the spell trap negate, and set my Harpy's Feather Duster Exodia Obliterate spell. And hopefully that's enough. Or the problem with that is if they use the trap, which I really hope they didn't have, the thrust really screwed me, the Ryza will clear the Exodia monster, and I'm boned. What I instead have to do is Prosper Droplet, and then hope they make a mistake. And then once I place the Temple, and I have them letting Shield in play, I have to hope that they let the Temple resolve, I put the Shield in play, and then they try to prevent me from getting Ankh. They use the Dreaming Town, knowing full well that I have Droplet in hand because I would have got it off Prosperity. And then I get to negate the Ryza, send the Engraver come back, clean up the field a bit, and then Exodia summon, and we're good. Now the alternative is they don't remember Dreaming Town at all, and once I summon the Exodia, then they try Dreaming Town, but I get to negate it. However, my opponent did make the correct play. I add the droplets, I play Temple, they don't do anything. The other play that would have worked for them, but is worse, is for sure just hitting the Temple off the bat. But I place the Engraver and the Shield. Then I use Shield effect, add Ankh. I activate Ankh, and they change the Ankh effect with Dreaming Town. They summon the Street from their hands, and I droplet it to keep them off of summoning. And I could attack over monster here, but I don't. I don't know why. I think I just set a card for my deck to pass because it doesn't matter. I know that the game is over now. They add back Eaglin. I have no way stopping a monster effect. So the Flu Barrage will peck all my eyes out, and I will lose. Unfortunately, we are dealt our first loss here. Not against one of the 3 big meta threats, and against Flu, of all things effing Flu. Anyways, that's it, guys. Locals is over. We ended up 2-1-1. Damn, I'm really not ending with the scores I want with these Locals vlogs. Next week, we'll be back with a Lightsworn deck, and I'm hoping that ends up going a bit better. Actually, pulling off a clean 4-0 would be awesome. I feel like always something goes wrong, and I just can't win. I promise I'm not that bad. But let me know how you enjoy these local vlogs, going to locals and playing these experimental decks, as well as if you have any recommendations for how I change up my deck. I don't like the stun version of this deck. I feel like it's pretty boring and also bricky, and also not even that good. So not something that I would recommend. And if you want to check out the deck list for this, as well as my deck profile with some actual insights and reasonings, then you know what to do. Go check out Patreon. Other than that, guys, I'll see you all next time. Peace.